What's up, people? 0088 here, and this is my review of Daredevil, the brand new Netflix series from Marvel. Now, my knowledge of Daredevil only extends from the Spider-Man animated series, from what I saw on that in the 90s, and the movie from Ben Affleck, which, don't worry, I'm not drawing too much from that. I can even barely remember it. So this is just going to be focused strictly on what I've seen and heard of the comics. And I know how important Daredevil is to the Marvel comic universe and how important he could be or should be to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And moving on that, Daredevil is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which means he's part of the Avengers, he's part of the same world as Iron Man, Thor, and all them lot, which is really interesting. It was one of the main things that drew me to this series, knowing that it was set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And not only was it set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's also a gritty, hard-hitting, gory Daredevil in a universe that's already been very light-hearted, comedic, and fun, and almost juvenile sort of universe so far, with Iron Man movies, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Avengers movie, and of course Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is very, light-hearted and comedic. The scariest thought about Daredevil is I've never watched any other superhero TV shows. I've only watched the movies, and this is the first superhero TV show that I'm watching of this new superhero era. People that have seen Arrow regard Arrow as probably the best superhero TV show today. And now the same people that have seen Arrow are saying, after watching the whole Daredevil series, they don't know if they can go back to Arrow and take it seriously. I'm like, what? Is Daredevil that good that is kicking Arrow off the top spot of superhero TV shows? That's insane. So anyway, all that conjecture aside, the acting is top notch. The guy playing Daredevil, great. He's very laid back, and he's got this very calming, sort of soothing voice when he speaks. Matt Murdock got that self-righteousness about him. It feels like a guy that would take justice into his own hands. And then you've got Karen Page, I believe. And if I'm wrong, correct me. But Karen Page is, as far as I know, the love interest of both Foggy, Matt Murdock's friend, and Matt. In the comics, there's a big love triangle going on there in the comics, but they play on that very, very subtly in a series, which is a good thing. I enjoy that. And then obviously Kingpin is absolutely amazing. Kingpin is wow. They say that the guy playing Kingpin is a method actor, and you can really see it. It feels like it's Kingpin. It feels like this guy is from this world and he lives in this world. The acting is superb. More on Kingpin later. But the weak link for me is Foggy, the guy that plays Foggy a little bit. I recognise the guy. I don't know his name off head right now, but I recognise him, and I've seen him in other things before. But this guy is he grows on you. At first, I couldn't tell if he was acting poorly or he was meant to be acting the way he did act. He was acting very kind of awkward, and it seemed like his jokes were very dry, and he missed his timing. His comedic timing seemed a bit off, but I couldn't tell if that was deliberate or not. Maybe he's trying to be funny in the series and his character's comedic timing's off. Maybe the actor's actual comedic timing's off and Foggy's actually funnier than that. But you find out as you continue to watch the series, it gets more funny and more interesting later on. The pacing of it is quite good. I love how there's a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue, a lot of character building, and then these long talks that build up everything before that, so then the action scenes actually mean something to you. You actually care what's going on with the characters. But one criticism I'd give the dialogue and the talking scenes is sometimes they're talking for far too long, but it's not the length that's the problem. It's that what they're saying that's the problem. Sometimes it seems like they're saying things and it doesn't mean anything, or it just seems like they're just talking for the sake of talking, or the dialogue just isn't intriguing or interesting enough to hold your attention too long. So it starts to feel like it's dragging a little bit sometimes. some of the talking scenes. I don't mind long talking as long as it's interesting. Like if it feels like some great dialogue, like what you'd hear in something like Inglourious Bastards or Pulp Fiction, then they can talk for the whole flipping movie. They can talk for 2 hours long and it won't bother me, as long as the dialogue is great. But if the dialogue is very non-interesting and doesn't capture you, and doesn't entice you in what they're saying, and you kind of lose track and do something else, start looking at your phone, then that could be a problem. And that happened a few times in the series. That's probably one of my biggest complaints in it. Because if the dialogue was great, the series would have been. If the intrigue of the series and all that would have probably been up there with Breaking Bad, and that's saying something. The characters are really cool. Like the best friend Foggy, he's like a good comic relief character. The bits that really shined for me was when Matt, he discovered that Matt was Daredevil, spoiler alert. He discovered that Matt Murdock was Daredevil, and he just kind of told him off for lying, that we've been best friends for years, and now you just lying to him about something that's big, and who are you really? Are you even blind? Something that, like, all of a sudden all that friendship is put on the line in a serious way, and Foggy really, the guy playing Foggy really showed that quite well in his own little comedic way, because he was a funny character. I think it wasn't too serious and too over the top and too such a departure from what the character's like. You believe he could do that. And I love the way he kind of knocked Matt Murdock's self-righteousness out of him a bit with that. Like, Matt Murdock always seemed sure of himself, always in a little way, in a lovable way, always a little bit demeaning, and you know, felt like not that he did it consciously, but subconsciously felt like he was better than Foggy. And I just kind of liked how, you know, Foggy put him down a few steps and told him off, like, what you did was wrong by not telling me. And you could see the regret. And the actor that played Matt Murdock, you could see the regret in his face. And that was one of the best scenes for the character Foggy. Obviously, the nurse Claire, Rosario Dawson played the nurse Claire, and a sort of semi-love interest for Matt Murdock, where she was healing him and all that kind of stuff, and that's one of the best aspects of the Daredevil show. Is I love how the grittiness and the goriness of it, where she had to keep healing and had all these cuts. It just reminds me of when you read the comics, and that one particular comic, it wasn't Daredevil for me, it was Spider-Man, where Spider-Man is coming from a beating, and you see him unconscious, and the whole his suit is all ripped up, and May catches him and sees him, and she's like, what the hell? And she sees Spider-Man, Peter Parker all badgered up and ripped up and bloody after doing some street level crazy fighting. And it was just cool to see that come to life. It wasn't Spider-Man, it was Daredevil, but it was cool to see Daredevil go through all that shit. That you can tell this is Daredevil year one. Like, you know, like Batman year one, this is Daredevil year one. And my favourite character from the whole series has to be Kingpin. Wow. Kingpin was damn impressive. Damn impressive. Probably the best villain in the MCU so far, and that's obviously counting the movies as well. How is the best villain of one from the TV show? It's insane. Like, Kingpin, from his weird awkwardness and his stammering and stuttering and his hesitation with that Vanessa is a soon-to-be wife, the Vanessa, and when they're on the date, and he's just a guy trying to find love, trying to just make his city a better place. Like, you can really sympathize with him. You can really try and understand where he's coming from, and then the backstory just adds to it, where his dad was abusive, and just messed him up as a kid, and that whole thing with the painting looking like the wall that dad used to force him to stare as a kid. Kingpin was such a very powerful character that I think a lot of people could relate to, a lot of kids could probably relate to. They've really made him they've made him so sympathetic and interesting to the point where you're almost rooting for Kingpin instead of Daredevil. I don't know how, is it just me? Am I the only one that did that? But I felt like sometimes I was rooting for Kingpin more than I was for Karen, Daredevil, Matt Murdock and Foggy. I was just kind of like, nah, let Kingpin do his thing, you know. Kingpin's my dude, my guy. Like Kingpin. It's funny. I keep calling him Kingpin, but they never refer to him as Kingpin once in the show. It was Wilson Fisk all the time. Like he wasn't even a total badass all the time. Like so he was actually afraid of some certain people. Though eventually, if those certain people started to cross the line, he just suddenly switches on them and just destroys them. He doesn't care. Like he has a ton of respect for certain people. He has fear for certain people. But if those certain people cross the line with him, that fear and respect that he has for them goes out the window, and he'll crush their skulls. It's insane. That Game of Thrones Mountain versus Viper-esque episode where he just literally crushed the skull off that guy in the car. It was like, I guess, that nightmare-inducing shit. It just goes to show you how fucked up the Kingpin character is. And the bit where, after that scene was really important, where he crushed the skull of that guy, the Russian guy, because it really made you see what this man is capable of. This man that almost has a very teddy bear nice look about him a little bit, and how scary he can be. And then, like, for example, when he catches Daredevil for the first time, and Daredevil's knocked out, and he starts weighing him in, those huge, big, brawling bear punches into Matt Murdock's face, you're actually scared for the character. You're actually worried. You actually think Matt Murdock could die. And he's the main title. Obviously, you know he's the title character. He's not going to die, but you're like, Jesus Christ. Kingpin, this one simple big man. He's quite relatively strong. Probably, honestly, the weakest villain, like strength-wise, of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe villains, most of them, the ones that actually fight and stuff. He's probably the scariest, the way they've just shown him. It's just funny that, like, Loki will kill him, Whiplash would kill him, Ironmonger would kill him, Winter Soldier would kill him. All the villains in the MCU, apart from someone like Sam Rockwell's character, would kill him. But because he's human, but Kingpin was so scary and vicious that, wow, he's probably the scariest villain. Just because of how calm and intelligent he is, but at the same time how he can just switch it up and crack your skull. And one of the coolest parts of the series was all the Easter eggs. You know, you get to hear them say the incident, the Battle of New York, the Battle of New York newspaper. You get to see all the little callbacks from the Avengers and for the Avengers, the first Avengers films, the Battle of New York, and also there's some comic book Easter eggs here and there, and some alludes to some future stuff with the prequel, some allusions to the future stuff with Iron Fist and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and also to season 2, what we could see in season 2. I was a little bit disappointed with the death of Ben Urich, that reporter guy, because he was a cool character. Like, not only that, but he was such a big character from the comic books. He was always doing reports on Civil War. He was doing reports on Spider-Man, Daily Bugle. He reported a whole bunch of stuff. He reported stuff with Daredevil, and he was like a very big side character in the comics. And he was black, and you know, and this is a great example of if you've seen my race changing video, see my video about changing diversity and races in superhero movies. Like, this is exactly the perfect example of how it's done right. You take a small side character and then you change his race. That's how you do it. or you create a new one. Not a huge character, and it was great. And I want to see more of him. See a good, like, top-standing black character like that. The final suit was okay. It was pretty cool. I wasn't fond of the black parts. I can sort of understand why they did it, but I don't understand. But what they could have easily just made the whole thing red. I don't know why the black parts would be black. That could have been red as well. But I guess I'm not sure about the cowl. The cowl looks a bit weird. Like it looks like it squishes his head a bit. Like his head looks really small on the cowl. It looks like his eyes aren't in the right place. There's something off about that. But apart from that, the suit looks really cool. I wanted to see him use a hook shot, the swinging shot from his pole. I don't know if he's going to get that in season 2, but he doesn't have any ropes or swinging baton sticks. And yeah, my final thoughts for season 2. Hopefully in season 2 we see Elektra. That she had a little mention in season 1. A little mention, a very small comment about how he used to date a Greek girl before, which she did do in a comic. And the Greek girl is Elektra, so hopefully she'll be in it and she can do some cool stuff, maybe work for Kingpin or something to track down Daredevil. And then Daredevil and her figure out who each other are, something cool like that. And hopefully we see, maybe we even see some cameos from the heroes in the MCU or someone from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. cameo, which would be really, really cool. It's literally the comic universe is coming to life on screen. It's insane. And here's wishing and hoping that he gets a role in Civil War, the movie. Even if it's a short, extremely short cameo scene where you see him take someone out or something like that. But yeah, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Daredevil's a great watch. Definitely recommend it. Binge watch the shit out of that and rate it 5 stars because we want to see more of that. Anyway, that's 0088. Over and out, and I'll see you again. Peace.